to the 6, we be in the mix. With that rare candy paint job on the whip. I need food for the kids, money for the rent. Fuck a lockdown, baby, I can't do that shit. And I don't never vote, cause I'm fucking broke. And either way, I know the police ain't gon' leave me alone. On a plane, about to visit Glen Rock. Need crypto, told me I should bring the Glock with me. So I packed up my piece and I'm sliding. Cause we might get caught up in a riot. Middle finger Trump, middle finger Biden. Fuck a left, fuck a right, is you riding? Know you love to see it, dudes rocking. Ain't no politics, baby, we just talking. From the birds to the bricks, we be in the mix. With that rare candy paint job on the whip, who you with?
From Nevada to where are you at, Bernard? You in Scotland?
I'm in Glasgow in Scotland. Yep.
Scotland to Australia. We found a way to get all the time zones lined up. However, the Australian lost and had to get up at this ungodly hour. His place looks very dark. It looks very dark. It looks like he woke up and you're like, I woke up in the middle of the night. It's like the time you wake up to go to the bathroom and take a leak or something like that. And then you're like, oh, it's way too early. It's not time to get up yet. But he's up. Yeah. He's here. Sam, thank you so much for this, for doing this. It's Halloween where you're at right now. I don't even, do you guys celebrate Halloween? Do you guys celebrate Halloween in Australia at all or no?
Seemingly more and more so every year. Not me, but I'm sure there'll be some trick-or-treaters.
Oh, okay. So people are doing that. Okay, excellent.
Australia is basically just America now. Yeah.
I good and bad. I hope maybe good, maybe bad. I don't know. Yeah, excellent. Well, yeah, he had to get up early there, and I would like to introduce everybody to Sam. Sam, who are you, man? I mean, you don't have to say too much about yourself, but like, just what do you do? I mean, you've obviously are a well-read person, because every time I'm reading a book, you're like, "Yep, loved that one." And I'm like, "Damn, you've done a lot of reading in your life." But I mean, you just vibe out and read good books. Is that what you do?
Pretty much. I play a lot of music. I play in some bands, but I just work like a boring office job. So I think at some point, roughly 8 or 9 years ago, I realized that I had no attention span and I had to get back into reading and forcing myself to just make my brain work. So since then, I've just kind of been charging through it. And yeah, I guess found this show. And I think I first hit you up on Instagram because you posted something about Eastbound and Down. Well, Miles Davis, but
that's a wide span of things, but two things I hold in high regard.
Well, yes, so do I. And then I don't know.
Equal regard too. Like I believe Eastbound and Down is the achievement that like the greatest Miles Davis album is, actually, in my opinion.
Both important to me, that's for sure.
Well,
I think I don't know. I saw you guys chatting about Blood Meridian or something, and they tapped in after that.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, I'm happy that we were able to get you on for this, because we're definitely excited to talk about that. And of course, returning to the show after a marathon. He didn't get sick of me after a marathon. Covering Gravity's Rainbow.
6 hours.
Yeah, 6 hours. Yeah, but very proud. Anytime I see that, after I'm going through our little like archive and stuff, and I see just 3, I was like, that's really cool that we did that. I'm really excited. Everybody check that out. That's free on wherever you listen. Gravity's Rainbow. If you don't read a lot of people haven't read the book, and if you don't, I still feel like there's a lot that can be mined from the conversation that we had. But of course, it's Bernard T. Joy, are you being like tapped on to write about Thomas Pynchon now? Like, I feel like you're really becoming.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a few projects that I'm into for that. Cool. But like I said, when we did the Gravity's Rainbow, it's like, because my main guy's William Faulkner, and from him I just sort of broadened out. You obviously go to people like Hemingway, you go to people like Flannery O'Connor, and then you just broaden out. It was from that I started to read Cormac McCarthy, and I read all his work, and then and actually Pynchon was someone for me that was like, right, let's do something outside your zone, if you know what I mean, because it's like, right, they're all like, I'm really modernists, and even McCarthy, of all the writers that are our contemporaries, he's the one that really maybe harks back most to a period before the postmodern. So for me, like reading people like Don DeLillo or Volman or Pynchon was all just it was actually hard to do because it's not something that I respond to particularly. Right. You know, I'm not. I don't consider myself a particularly postmodern person. So you know, I've not got those sorts of like for instance, one thing that we might talk about later on is like the irony in Pynchon, which is really quite interestingly tackled in Shadow Ticket actually. And you know, I'm not an ironic person. You know, I'm actually quite sentimental. And a lot of ways,
same.
So, you know, so it's like in that sense, the postmodern and postmodern fiction was for me like a big ask, but so I actually forced myself to read it, and then when you get into like someone like Pynchon, you realize like even despite yourself, if you go in and you're not even thinking he's your thing, you've got to respect the game. You've got to respect the fact that he is a master at what he does, and you know. He's got so many excellent qualities that go across the entire body of work. So, yeah, I got kind of hooked on him, and then, like I've said, I've read through all the Pynchons now. Yeah. So it had to have something for me, and yeah, as time's going on, I'm more and more like getting into writing a bit more about him.
Yeah, I mean he's fascinating. I find like the first one I read was Crying of Lot 49, and I was stuck on the first page for like embarrassingly long. Just it was so flowery, it was so eccentric, it was so again postmodern, but I don't even know if it was that was that.
Well, it just throws you right in.
It throws you right in. I mean, she's saddled with the estate, you know what I mean? Right away, but you're kind of like, yeah, but is that what's happening? Like I was like, is that what I got from that? But it's true. And then after a while, like, you know, he Pynchon, for whether you love him or hate him, and I think both emotions towards him are completely warranted, to be quite honest. And I'll never try to convince someone that hates him that he's good. I mean, if you've picked up a book of his and put it down, I'm not going to be the one that tells you to pick it back up. But I think it is funny though. He comes out with a new novel in 2025 that we're going to be talking about today called Shadow Ticket. But I don't know. For me, I as somebody who covers books, I don't know how steeped into like the literary world I was, but like the minute that book came out, every conversation was about him. There's people that hated him. There's people that love him that were just going, I have to fire off my Thomas Pynchon take. And I actually really enjoy that. I actually really enjoy that there was a new novel that came out. Yeah, despite it being from a guy in his mid to late 80s, it's not like he's some new, you know, Bret Easton Ellis new blood guy, but back in 82 or something. But it was, everybody stopped to say their take. And I was just like, this is so much better than what everybody else talks about on the internet every day. Whether I was frustrated with it, whether I was, oh, no, you're wrong about that. And there's even people that love him that I'm like, dude, I don't know how you got that from that novel. But also, I kind of, that's not exactly wrong either, because I don't know how I get some of the stuff from his books sometimes either. Like there's the obsession that I have with him is, why am I thinking of this while reading this? Why am I like, there's these weird like missing links between and I that's not an error in it. It's more so like, why can't I see, you know, it seems like I'm reading something and thinking something else, reading something, thinking something else. Gravity's Rainbow is like the ultimate test of that, and I still find that book to be just incredibly chilling and amazing. But I think we were given a pretty more straightforward novel, which I don't think everybody anticipated from him. I think a lot of people thought he was going to write a 500 to 600 page kind of sprawling you know, underworld novel, and instead we get a pretty tight 300 page underworld novel about a guy who, you know, with a guy from the old guard kind of experiencing the new world order in a way, nonetheless. Hicks McTaggart. So Sam, I want to start with you. Just give me some initial thoughts on Shadow Ticket.
Well, like you said, not all of his stuff, but so much of it is so subjective. And yeah, starting this one, I was like, oh, it feels like he's kind of playing the hits to some extent. Like it's a private eye. There's, you know, there was an adenoid reference in the first like 2 chapters or something. So there's some little Gravity's Rainbow straight away. Yeah, like I was saying, before we started recording, it felt like he was like, "Oh, I haven't tackled the 30s yet. That's this one decade in the 20th century that I got to just like tick that off." But just seemed like more zany character names than ever before. Just goofiness. Until halfway through the book, it just felt like an old guy, just like kind of having one last laugh, having some fun. Obviously, there's a lot more in it that I'm sure will be continuously unpacked now that it's part of his whole project. But it did feel just lighter in tone. And like you said about everyone talking about it as soon as it was announced, like it is the first book since I've been into him that has been, released since I first started reading him. And for that reason alone, it's super exciting. It's just kind of felt surreal cracking it open and being like, oh, this thing exists. How long has he been writing it for? Like, where's it going? Just still sort of baffled that have it and have read it and it's out there.
I'm with you the same way. Like, because recently Cormac McCarthy dropped the kind of double novel right before he passed away, which I haven't read, but Michel Houellebecq drops Annihilation, which I think is an incredible novel, but nobody talked about it. Like, I was like, wait, the guy that everyone talks about on the internet all the time, Michel Houellebecq, dropped a novel, and people were just like, anyways, The Elementary Particles. And I'm like, wait, I'm sorry, Annihilation is an excellent book. If anybody hasn't picked that up for reasons, I say pick that up. It's actually really good. And I went in reverse order of his books afterwards, and I'm just getting to his first novel, whatever. Annihilation is up there with his best work. Now that I've read some of it, it's less cynical. It's way more of a he's not a nasty little mean guy in it. He's actually a lot more sweet and loving and all that. But
I haven't read any Houellebecq, but I'll get there one day.
It's not for everybody. It's another guy. It's like, if it's not, I think you would enjoy it because he's actually.
I'd like to. Yeah,
he's really funny, and there's definitely some of his novels that are like the highest esteemed I don't like as much, and it's not even to be a contrarian, but I'm like, wait, you guys are just really like bleak stuff, man. Like, as he got older, he really, I think, got better and hopefully writes something else at some point. But Pynchon was the one that I thought dominated the internet, that's not what I would have bet on, to be quite honest, out of those three authors. If you were to tell me those three guys were going to drop a novel within 2 calendar years of each other, and you would say which one would dominate internet discourse, I probably would have said McCarthy. But
I
McCarthy's
guess the PTA movie at the same time.
That's true.
In the discourse anyway.
That's true. That's true. You're right. Because of the Vineland, because of stuff like that.
We're going to get you right back to the episode, but I just wanted to let you guys know of a few other things we offer at Rare Candy Industries. We have a Substack with free and paid subscription options. Free subscribers get access to all written content. That includes Bob's Red Pill. That's the best thing going on the internet right now. Trust me. Paid subscribers get full access to our premium episode feed. And that's just every episode we don't necessarily want to share with the general public, if you know what I'm saying. Again, that's rarecandy.substack.com. We also have merch. That link's a little long for me to say right now, but go to the description, go to our merch store, and find a shirt that's right for you. We have Rare Candy shirts, Dr. Bronner soap label shirts, Rishi mushroom shirts, all types of stuff there. Check it out. There's got to be something for you. And lastly, check us out on social media. On Instagram, we're Rare Candy Pod, but on Twitter, we're at Rare Candy Pod 1. All right, enough of that. Let's get you back into the episode.
Right off the bat, I love Hicks McTaggart a lot. I love it. I love his romanticism. I love the fact that he watches a world change and forever expand in pretty much all bad ways, according to Hicks McTaggart, where he's just looking like every expansion is just leaving him in the dust. He's like kind of like an old machinery that get like a water heater you have to light by hand or something. Like he's like be like one of these things that had a very vital function for a long time, and he is just seeing all of these classic Pynchon secret police countries that you never thought would collaborate with each other during this time are all of that, but he's still so he's still such a slave to his craft, meaning like, well, I got to write a new ticket for that. That's my favorite line in the book. I got to write a new ticket for that. You're like, dude, you're so beyond what you're doing right now. But I love it because like you, the reader, is kind of with him too. Because we've seen the post this world already in a way, and we're kind of like, oh, poor Hicks, poor Hicks in a way. I don't know if you guys had the same feeling about that.
Well, it's like I think what Sam's saying, like it was such a reprise, and like to be so to be done, in under 300 pages, and it does feel slim, and it feels like an Inherent Vice or Bleeding Edge.
Quick chapters too.
Quick chapters. It's not dense, but it is like such a it reprises everything that came before. You've got the stuff in there. I mean, it opens with the sound of a bomb.
Yeah,
which this is a throwback
to
that's
good point. Great point.
And then there's so many bits in there that are just direct references to Against the Day. It even has Lou Basslight, who is actually in Against the Day. So it's like all these callbacks and reprisals of old stuff, and yeah,
apparently
I think
Zoltan shows up in Against the Day as well.
That's right. Yeah, there's a couple of characters. I think there's about 3 that I noticed that just maybe 2 or 3 that just it's direct callbacks, and I think it's like this sort of I'd said at one point to someone it's like he's sort of like doubling down on what he's doubling down, I think, on what his critics least like about him, because people say, oh no, Pynchon, don't do all these acronyms, or don't do these stupid names, or
so many proper nouns.
Yeah, exactly. It's and there's various things that like people who have been very against Pynchon's fiction or very down on it have sort of said that is the sort of thing we shouldn't have in Pynchon, but he's sort of doubled down, and people are saying no, he's tripling down, he's just going the whole way, and it's interesting to compare it to someone like you mentioned, Cormac McCarthy, who he did the complete opposite. He had the same gap between his last novel and the double novel Stella Maris and Passenger. Same sort of 15, 16-year gap or whatever it was between Pynchon and Bleeding Edge and Shadow Ticket. But McCarthy, to my reading, kind of he's listening to his critics, and maybe listening too much to his critics, and saying, "Oh, what bits of my fiction are not any good, or for the modern age," sort of thing. So he makes one thing McCarthy makes a big deal out of is making like a more gender inclusive, because McCarthy's fiction is like is like renowned for being all about men.
Yeah.
The last 2 are the main character is a woman in both of them, right?
Which one?
In those last 2
yeah. Well, you could say like The Passenger. There's 2 main characters. It's the brother and the sister, but the sister kind of is a really pivotal character. And then Stella Maris, the main character, is just like a conversation between the sister character and her shrink. So she's the star of the show, and to me, it just read, for McCarthy, it just read like a quite false, because I don't think an 80-year-old, an 80-year-old man might not have the time to change his whole career in the last 10 years of his life or whatever. So I don't think Pynchon fell into that trap. I think Pynchon said, no, I know what I'm good at. I know what I can do. I'm going to sort of silence the voice of the inner critic here and bring out what people like me for,
Yeah.
And it's going to be a book for the people who like Pynchon. It's not going to be a book for the people who don't.
Yeah, and it's a classic postmodernist thing would be to treat your critics as an editor, right? And say like, hey, these names are stupid. Why don't you have it named Richard Johnson in your next book or something? And he's just like, what if there's a guy named Stuffy Keegan? What if we do that? Yeah, exactly. Like, Hop Winged. Like, what if he's like, what, that is postmodernism at that. You see it with comedians all the time. Like when a comedian will be like, we'll leave like a cut scene, that scene that should have been cut, like where somebody's breaking in character and they're like in there, or they're like referencing somebody in the crew or something. Like people will do that, and some people hate it, some people love it, but that is almost this like, no, I'm gonna, and maybe who knows when he wrote this either. I was gonna say that. When do you think he actually wrote this? That there's no real reference to any modern day. Whereas if I haven't read Bleeding Edge, but I know there's very much of the time references in Bleeding Edge.
Yeah.
Like to say like, okay, that this is, we're referencing, like, I forget what he's making like rap references in there and stuff. Like, whereas
like Dragon Ball Z and stuff.
Exactly. So like, but here it's kind of like, he might have written this novel 20 years ago. You have we don't know, like, and so I think it's, I do think it was fascinating.
I got the feeling, when I was reading, I mean, I don't know the answer to that there'll be people probably that do know, a bit more about when he wrote it. Like there'll be a factual answer to that. Mm-hmm. But to me, reading it, I was thinking to myself, I bet he's going back into the drawer when he was writing Against the Day. Because Against the Day is just like, Against the Day's got so many of these. You could actually think like this could be a chapter of Against the Day, actually.
Right.
So he's probably I would say it seems that he's went back into his box of old hits and he's said, right, well, that never made it into Against the Day. Let's expand that story or something like that, So it could be really old material, actually.
Yeah, that's a good point. One thing I was struck off the bat was the dynamic between Hicks and April, whom we kind of don't really get a lot of after a certain amount of time, which I think is really good by design, because April is this kind of like, that's kind of like the toughest thing Hicks has to bring down in America, is like this kind of wild, most of the time he's dealing with divorced stuff. He keeps bringing that up, like being a private eye is all about just dealing with infidelity, matrimonial tickets. That's exactly what he says. And it says, but April's this girl that only wants to deal with married men. So like her one thing that she hates about Hicks is that he's just available basically all the time. He's dependable. Hicks is the dependable person. And in old world Midwest, whether it's Wisconsin, Chicago, or anything, you kind of just need this guy. Now the world is advancing far beyond that. And as he leaves April, April is kind of this like vestigial part of like the story after a while, because I'd like a little bit more of it. There's like this Bogey and Bacall kind of situation. Mm-hmm. But what are they going to do? They're going to go travel these worlds together? Like, no, they're not going to. And that's kind of the thing that Pynchon does, is he takes people away from you. Now he's done it poorly in some books, but this one, once April is gone, and that plot is I mean, we do get some closure on the plot, what happens, and it's not great. It's sad actually, because you want Hicks to come back and be like, that world was not for me, April, me and you, we're gonna have like a weird Richard Burton, Elizabeth Taylor kind of marriage or something, maybe together, and not saying that's the greatest marriage in the world, but that's a lot better than what's happening in Eastern Europe at that time. But he puts her, once she's gone, that's like the old world goes with her, basically. Hicks's old world of just, Wisconsin, kind of like indigenous Native American, stuff happening, and bombs blowing up in shops, which, does that all sound great? No, but Eastern Europe is going to hell basically at this point.
Yeah, she's sort of like the Shasta Fay of this book. I hadn't thought about that.
Yes, good point.
The unattainable lost love or something.
Mm-hmm. It's like the opposite of a manic pixie dream girl. Like an inverted inversion of that, which Pynchon inversion, that's kind of the one of his main qualities.
Yeah.
But also she's just reiterated over and over and over again in the novel, isn't she? Because we've got like April, and he has this whole thing before he leaves America with April and Don Pepino, who's this sort of mobster who has taken an infatuation to April and has this jealous relationship with Hicks because he's sort of muscling in on his territory with April. And then later when he meets Daphne Ermont in Europe, there's this character Hop Wingdale who comes up, and that's Daphne's sort of paramour. and he's then got to deal with the jealousy that Hop feels for Daphne, and he comes between them. And then later on, there's even a more minor character called Glow, and that happens again. He has this sort of flirtation with Glow, and she has a boyfriend called Porfirio, who or a husband called Porfirio.
Such a funny character.
Sorry,
such a funny character.
Yeah, they're all very funny, and he's the one, of course, that's really weird because he's got like an auto gyro that he wants to gift to Glow for reasons that are not exactly clear, and so there's a sort of that mirroring as it goes. As we've talked about that with Gravity's Rainbow, like all the characters are kind of mirrors of each other, and so when he leaves April, he meets new Aprils along the way, and he has that same weird. And it's again that whole April's got that whole fetish about married men, and she doesn't like Hicks because he's available, like you say, and he's not married. And then later on, it's similar because the women he meets, Daphne, Glow, they've all got attachments with other men.
Yeah,
it's like this sort of thing that the menage a trois is sort of in, but it leads as well. I think like when you read it, it leads to a sort of amorality, in the whole situation. I mean, it's like that. Like, there's no morals behind anyone's sexual affairs, in the novel. In this, they become sort of ironic. And what's interesting in us is I think Pynchon's aware of that, and he's and like the characters within the novel are aware of that. They're all sort of aware that they shouldn't be living like this. It's kind of a very amoral space to be in, and they actually suffer from it. So, it's again, and it comes to when I opened up talking about like the postmodern irony and how you've got to kind of steep yourself in the postmodern irony and the amorality of that world if you're going to read these books. But then if you read closely enough, I don't think Pynchon's like saying it's amoral and that's it. I think he's saying, look, here's the problem here. Where it might be a problem, it might not be, because do we really want morals rammed down our neck?
Yeah.
And on the other hand, can we live in a world that is entirely amoral?
Yeah.
And especially I think like Pynchon does it, Don DeLillo does it. I think there's a real anxiety around relationships in those novels because there's there's no steady relationship that you can say, well, this is my husband, this is my wife. There's always like, okay, that's your wife, but your wife's got a boyfriend.
Yeah.
Which after the Roaring 20s, I suppose that kind of sentiment would have been pretty common. Everyone would have just been decadently living it up for a while, and then everything went to shit, and everyone's lost.
Yeah, and it's also maybe a reference to Weimar, you know what I mean, when you're talking about the what's actually happening in Eastern Europe as Hicks gets closer and closer to it. But Bernard, you brought up something really interesting there with where Hicks is kind of like, Hicks is one of those guys that like he's very sentient, like he's very, we're very much inside his head, like it's very much a pulp novel where he thought this, he saw that. What does that mean? What is, and we're kind of working this out with him. We're kind of one step by step with him for most of the novel. And then but also the relationship he has with his the women that are kind of like insert unattainable woman here, his bosses kind of become the same as well, like, or not the same, but he meets a new guy, and that guy might be just more absurd. I mean, we get to the point where we have like, what is it, a guy just doing a bunch of cocaine constantly, like who's part of like the whole secret police thing, like I think it's the British guy that's just like shoveling cocaine into his nose, very much like Inherent Vice, kind of a callback to Inherent Vice with the dentist. But you get that there, but he still assumes that same position, like he's such a loyalist. And I think Pynchon's kind of saying like, hey, be a loyalist, but have a limit, like in this way. It's like, realize that like not all bosses are good bosses, because he has a good boss at the beginning, like he has a good boss at the beginning, but Hicks is just so much of the, we see it with like older generations of maybe our own family, where it's like their boss could literally be Adolf Hitler, and they're just like, oh, he's the boss, you know, like he's the boss of this jeans company or something.
Yeah.
Like, and they're just like, hey, I got my thoughts about the guy. We talk about him at the bar later, but from 8 to 4 p.m., you know, he's the boss. And like Hicks has that has that kind of like allegiance to these people where you're just like, he knows that they're no good, but he's like, well, for me to go against that is ultimate torture. Because he was a Pinkerton for a while too, so it's not like Hicks has done everything. He's this kind of Dashiell Hammett style, almost like nameless character that we are given a name for, in a way.
Yeah, it's got a lot to do with like the hard, but it's a really just off the, you know, I'm a real fan of this book. I mean, a lot of people have been sort of like. There's a lot of mixed reports about how good it is, how up there it is in terms of the Pynchon body of work. But I'm a fan of it. I mean, I laughed a lot during this book. Really, I think it's a funny book.
It's very funny.
Yeah, I think it really is. Yeah, and so I rate it, and so when he's doing the really off the peg stuff, because a lot of that, what you're saying, Glenn, that's all like just like hard boiled detective off the peg. Yeah. You know, and like you said, the Bogey and Bacall stuff, the use of that really fast-paced language that's really flirtatious and really sexual and a lot of double entendre. And all this stuff about the working life of the detective, it's just really off the peg. But somehow, like, Pynchon's taken all that off the peg stuff, and I think he makes it rich and new and charming. Yeah. Really, I think he does. I mean, it's like amazing actually to do that, because and some people, I have heard some critics say, oh no, it's off the peg stuff. It's just, we could do with less of this sort of burlesque, this sort of just off the peg stuff. But I don't think that's true. I think he takes
not at all.
And he makes it his own. Really, I think he does.
Well, like you were saying before as well about him sort of doubling down on things critics don't like about him. I feel like there was way more dialogue in this book than most of his other novels. It felt like anyway, but also way more of like characters just being conduits for ideas, and everyone kind of speaks the same, which DeLillo does a lot, but I feel like Pynchon doesn't normally write characters all saying the same thing, but they're all, and obviously a lot of it is slang of the time. He's trying to like wedge as much of that in as he can, but they're all using the same sort of phrases and ending their sentences the same way, and it's everyone almost like playing a part because they don't know how to do anything else. And I think that's just an interesting little sort of anomaly in his work that isn't usually there. Well, not to this degree anyway.
Yeah, I've never gotten through a page faster of Pynchon than this novel. And I don't mean it in a way like you're skimming, but you just look and you're like, oh, this is like, there's certain pages that are just a screenplay. In this,
so snappy.
It's the easiest book to read.
Easily.
Of all of Pynchon's. So, I mean, if you wanted to start, and I think that's actually probably going forward, I would probably say if someone said, well, where do I start?
Where do I start? Yeah,
this one, because it's going to give you all the, it's going to give you some of those sort of callbacks. You won't know they're callbacks, but it gives you the flavor of what happened before, in a sense, in a little sense. But it's totally different stylistically. It's just like you can get through it really quickly. It's sort of, I don't know if more enjoyable to some to read, because it's like, if there was going to be a beach read Pynchon, this would be the beach read Pynchon.
Yeah.
Whereas some of us, as you both know, some of us are gluttons for punishment, and we like to read Gravity's Rainbow or Mason and Dixon, and that's a trudge.
I read V, like not the whole book, but I read a large portion of V on vacation. It was actually my co-host Sai's wedding, and when I was at this beautiful place called McMenamin's in Portland, and I'm reading this book, and I'm like, man, this is the last book I need to be reading on vacation, which is a book that I like more than some. Some people will say it's just incoherent slop. There's definitely parts of that in there where he bit off a little more than he can chew for a first novel, but there's some like brilliance in that book that I think is really good. But yeah, I agree. Like this is totally much more of a vacation read, airplane read, like whatever. I mean, especially just the destination and the traveling that's happening in this would correspond really well. But one thing I wanted to bring up was Hicks has a kind of a flaw in that he is unable to kill people in a way, like he's like this, like what is it, Batman, like, you know, like the rules for like Batman and stuff like that, like where they're like they don't kill people, man. And but he has this problem, and he's seeing, like, no joke, like what's the term for it, it's not a psychic, but there's like the lady that he meets up with at the beginning who's like the
medium.
police. It's no, they give this weird app. It starts with an app, like
apport and assport.
Yeah,
I think she calls herself an assportist.
Yeah.
That's
it's like
right.
it's like not a real word. Yeah,
no, I mean, I did actually go and look it up. I don't think it's.
No.
I think apport is real.
Apport is real, but
assport isn't.
Yeah, it's a combine. It's like a composite word that Pynchon, I feel like, made up. Maybe somebody who's super into that stuff, which that might be somebody listening right now. To be honest, knowing our audience, they might be like, "No, it's real." Yeah, that may well be but it's not in Webster. Does not. No, has not exactly caught on to that one yet, because I had the Kindle copy and I was like, wait, I've never heard this word before. But anyways, what I mean is he has to go see these types of people, and they're all just kind of. Hicks has worked as a Pinkerton. He's busted up strikes. He's done all sorts of stuff, but like he's faced with this kind of like really interesting time where he's about to kill like a communist, basically, like a communist, and he's looking at him like eye to eye, and he just like can't get it done, right? Like it just doesn't work. Like the gun would drift or something. It's like physically just not allowed to happen. And I'm trying to think what book it was or what movie it was, but it's a very similar thing where I tend to think, and maybe it's said in the novel, and maybe there's parts of it that I just didn't quite grasp it in this, that it's being said, but I get the idea that that's why Hicks is actually tapped on, is because he can't get the job done, and he won't get the job done, and he won't make the decisive blow with a gun that might need that maybe it doesn't take down the whole underworld of what's happening in terms of a fascist government being installed in Eastern Europe, but they realize he's going to be the one that just prods and pokes around all the time while way bigger stuff is happening on the horizon. It's like he's actually this key cause. That's why he's so sought after, you know.
The book you're talking about Inherent Vice.
Because they knew Doc wouldn't do it, right? Exactly. Okay. Duh. Yeah.
It was like Doc was there because other characters had a vendetta and they would have carried out some sort of action, but they knew Doc would just wander around like a stoner. He would get to the root of the thing, but he wouldn't do anything about it. So that was. I think you're right. Yeah.
He's almost a good guy against his will. Like he starts out as a strike breaker and then becomes this PI. So he's basically a cop, but he's just one of those classic sleuths who doesn't get anything done. He just looks around and occasionally gets romanced and can't hurt anyone. His weapon vanishes out of his hand. And
right. You know. Well, and that's the same. It's different. He's different than Doc Sportello, but I read him as a Doc Sportello. You know, if I were to say who Hicks resembles, and I've only read 5 Pynchon novels, whereas I think you guys have read them all. But like I've had for me, and the ones I've read, it's going to be to me, Hicks and Doc Sportello are two guys in different eras. And now there are some differences. Like Doc is actually. Doc legit wants to escape the world that he's in. Like he's realizing, like post 1968, post 1969 Manson murders, this summer of love stuff, like lounging, just kind of slumming it, but kind of not. Like that the drug world is not what he wants, and he's trying to get a girl to settle down with him who has no interest in doing so. And on all of that. Whereas Hicks, I think Hicks kind of likes where he's at a little bit. But
he always wants to go back to Milwaukee at the end of the book.
Right. The
constantly
world is
asking people when the jobs. He doesn't even want the promotion.
He doesn't want it. He's one of these people who I don't think the world around him is crumbling. I mean, it is like that. The Al Capone world is no more. Like that's not happening anymore. Like that's even like your adversaries are completely different. But the I guess he's not trying to get out of a world, but the world is pushing him out, and he's just like, well, I do respect the chain of the command more than I respect my own comfort in my own world, because he's not one of those guys who like will refuse to evacuate in a hurricane, you know what I mean? Which you hear about those guys all the time. They're like, no, I'm going to die in my house. He's kind of like, well, I love my house, but I do love my position in the world. And almost in a way, like a dog, he has like this Pavlovian response. Let's go back to Gravity's Rainbow a little bit, to where if he's told by somebody that is higher than him, the boss said so, I got to evacuate, right? And that's kind of where he's at right now. He asks, can I go back later in the novel when he's like deep in Eastern Europe? I can't even remember where he is at this point. Is he in Italy? I can't even remember. He's basically saying, like, can I go back? And they're like, yeah, it's not happening. Like you can't, like you're, and he's just kind of like, well, that is what it is. Whereas Doc Sportello is like going like, no, he kind of sees it before anybody else in his hippie community, who he still has somewhat of an affection for, but they wear on him throughout the book. And he's just like, I got to get out of here anyway.
Yeah, he sees that everyone's a fed and everyone's been corrupt. I mean, Hicks does resist to the point of they have to drug him and put him on an ocean liner.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
A very, very funny scene.
Which Doc, that probably wouldn't work on as well. I mean, he'd do the drugs and he'd be like, he does get drugged in Inherent Vice, but like, it's just, he's kind of like, all right, well, I've been around this rodeo before. Hicks drinks, like he gets drunk and stuff, but he hasn't done these new chemicals. Like he hasn't done any of this stuff. Like this is a whole new world to him. So I found those two guys those two guys to be these kind of like, okay, well, here's the Doc Sportello of the 1930s, and here's the Hicks McTaggart of the early 1970s, late 60s.
Yeah, I mean, there's an interesting thing as well. You can take Pynchon's novels and you can sort of split them into two camps as well. And I feel that this is so obvious. When you read the whole lot. You say, oh, I'm in one of these novels now. It's this camp or that camp. And I think the way I divide those is it's novels that are written within Pynchon's living memory. So things he would have remembered, like the 60s or the 70s. And then you've got things that are historical, Mason and Dixon. Even Gravity's Rainbow is beyond Pynchon's real lived memory. Against the Day, too old for him, much too old. It's the beginning. And then that's right. And then also and this one, this is one it's too early. So and I think like there's such different tones to those different groups of novels. When he's dealing with something that's like the 60s or the 70s, that's I think that sort of feeling of already knowing that you're in because I think he's writing about the lived experience of knowing that you're going through some sort of social catastrophe.
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones, he's writing historical fiction, so he's using a different set of writerly muscles to produce that work. So I think that accounts for, like, you've got Hicks McTaggart isn't having a existential moment the same as Doc has in Inherent Vice, because Pynchon never lived through the 1930s in any. So it's like I think that's what's sort of going. And I think as well another thing, I think what Pynchon does marvelously, beautifully, is he just tracks a passage from one world to another, and that's where we are in the 1930s. That's where we are in Shadow Ticket. There's a passage going on between like an old world that's dying out and a new world that's being born. You see it in the wonderful settings in the novel. When Hicks goes to New York in the novel, the first thing he sees is a big billboard with a big neon eye that's moving around, and it's sort of like what New York is like the epitome of the postmodern, but it's a postmodern that's burgeoning into existence in front of us, because the 1930s is too early for the postmodern, but the postmodern's coming. It's like a steam train. You're not going to stop it. It's coming. Yeah. And Pynchon knows well that it's coming. So he's sort of saying, so Hicks is like, what? And then there's things like the brain that he goes to a place called Velocity Lunch, and they've got a brain that's glow in the dark and made out of jello. So it's really postmodern stuff, right? And Hicks is going, wow, the world that I was born into is disappearing in front of my eyes, you know. And then you see later on, there's really nostalgic bits. Like Hicks will be, there's that actually quite beautiful bit at the end where he does he phone call his mother or
yes,
yeah. And he
just like Doc does in Inherent Vice.
Yeah, that's it. So another similarity, and it's really nostalgic. He's thinking about the old Midwest prairies as they were in his boyhood. Yeah, as they were in his boyhood. So it's gone. It's finished. The postmodern has swept it away, or is beginning to sweep it away.
There's also that scene where I think it's shortly after he arrives in Europe and he's at that bar where they have like the cathode rays in the table, which almost is like a precedent to TV, or like
right.
Like they can see the faces at the other table through the top of the table, which like I don't know, things like that could even be taken as like a precursor to like online dating or something.
Yeah.
That was precisely what I thought when I read that bit. I thought like this is like Tinder.
Yeah.
And they were using it as Tinder, weren't they? Because it was a really weird, because actually they were using it for a really specific reason. It was so that, and now that I'm remembering it, I'm thinking I'm sounding mad for saying it, but it's probably Pynchon that's mad. It was daughters speaking to their fathers through the thing, or father figures through the thing. It was like a daughter.
Something very bizarre, yeah. And there's all the stuff in there with like the photo shoot between Bruno and Daphne, like the daughter-father thing going on there. Which could be a Trump Ivanka thing, perhaps, maybe.
It could also be a Chinatown kind of like that era of just kind of that is kind of a pulp trope a little bit, is like the incestuous family, rich family too. So it's, I mean, again, yes, the answer is yes to all of what you just said. Just said, like the answer is
yes. You can map onto it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Of course, the Franz Pokler story. It's just like another callback to incest is a big part of like the Pynchon body of work. If you want to avoid it, you're going to be sorely disappointed, because it's all the way through. So yeah, it was just another callback, I suppose. But what I was interested in that what Sam was saying there about the possible connection to Trump, because what I found is like he seems to be really, really, and a lot of people have said this, I think, he seems to be really resistant to make any comments and any real comments about the world in which we live now. And
New York Times didn't care for him not doing like that was the first that was actually got me excited to read the book, was that the New York Times would go, this doesn't tell us anything about the current like they wanted him to demolish.
Why isn't he writing about the Orange Man?
Why isn't he writing about the East Wing being taken out with an excavator? Like it's just like he's just kind of like they want this one-to-one thing, and to be honest, like he is commenting on the Times, but he's also like, to expect Pynchon to be a slave to like the president, you know what I mean? Like the president is making me mad. Like that's just not really a Pynchon novel. That's just not, like, even Vineland, which might be the most I hate the president novel.
The president does make him mad in Vineland, yeah.
That might be the one novel that really does it, like that of all that. But there's still so many more things happening in that than just the president. To me, it's somebody picked up their first Pynchon novel for the New York Times and was told, like, really thought that there was going to be some orange tyrant in like a Caesar kind of regalia or something. Like they thought that was going to be the case, but I'm sorry, like you're in for a bad time if that's what you want from his novel.
Yeah, and you
even
never
then, though, like, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm just going to say, you never know if he's parodying the positions that he puts forward. So I don't think in this current situation that we're in, like politically at the moment, or certainly in America, I don't think many people would appreciate it if he did comment on Trump, let's say, because I don't think we would get this sort of bashing I think what he would do, you know, is he would present it in a way that you're like, are you parodying people who don't like Trump, or do you not like Trump? You know, it's the exact same with Reagan. If you look at Vineland, you read it and you go, right, okay, but you're going over the point that you're putting against Reagan here is so over the top. Are you parodying people that don't like Reagan?
Yeah,
and obviously, as we said in the Gravity's Rainbow episodes, he's quite avowed leftist. So
right.
I mean, it's not like he's going to be on any other side than that. But still, I think maybe he does parody in places like certain modes and means of leftist movements.
He's seen every movement fail. He's seen every movement fail that we've seen in the modern world. I mean, he's seen probably every aspect. He's seen the McCarthy, you know, stuff, whatever side you're on that. Like, he's seen that stuff fall apart, the McCarthyism of the 50s. He's seen he was very much, you know, of the age of the people in the 60s, all the stuff that happened there. Vineland is basically all about, like, go ahead and start a political coalition. They'll either tattle on you or become a junkie or both. Like, he's seen all these things fail. So for him to just be like, here's my Orange Man Bad novel, I would have put it down, to be quite honest. And I don't care what side of the political spectrum you are, you don't pick up his novels for that. And I have seen people that do, and they don't usually get through his work. It's not, he is such a postmodern contrarian in a way that the minute he sees, like, you know, the resistance, or, you know, we all seen the emojis on the internet that make you, you know, this or that or anything, he's going to poke fun at that all the time. He pokes fun at these people, and that's why we pick it up. And like, usually it's a sign of insecurity when you can't poke fun at certain things. And I very much have always respected that for him, from him, I should say, is like, look, like, you know, look at these tortured hippies by the Reagan administration. It's like, but a lot of them aren't really that likable, you know, like beyond, especially in like Vineland. I mean, at least in my opinion,
or they sell out.
It's human nature. He kind of does play with the Dostoevsky, and humans will operate in their own self-interest. Like he resigns himself to that, where there are romantics for collectivism that are like, no. All we need is this time it'll be different. And Pynchon is kind of like, will it? I've seen it fail multiple times, and I'm not even sure he wanted it to succeed a lot of times. Not in the way that it was, you know. Like, I don't think he's a big fan of Jane Fonda. Let's just say that much. Like, I can just say that right now. I don't think he's gonna look at Jane Fonda and be like, if only we listened.
From the 5 to the 6, we be in the mix with that red candy paint job on the whip. I need food for the kids, money for the rent. Fuck a lockdown, baby, can't do
shit. Well, in that regard, though, I do think there are a lot of things in it that are very applicable to everything going on now. It doesn't need to be that explicit, though. Like, so much of the book, especially the first third, is like, you know, there's Nazis running around everywhere, and all these Americans are like, hey, look at these cool little, like, Nazi guys. What are they up to? Let's go to their bowling alley.
Yeah, the uncle that makes the weird dishes, right, is like referencing that. The uncle that makes like all the weird casseroles. Yeah, he's like, even uniforms are cool, man. Yeah.
Yeah, but even obviously, you know, it's in the lead up to World War II, and what happened after World War II, like all the Operation Paperclip stuff, all these guys coming back to America, which is setting up the foundation for, you know, arguably the state of it now and everything going on there now. So if you're trying to say that it's not relevant now and it's totally removed from our current climate, I think that's a pretty naive take on it, to be honest.
It is. However, the person who's making that argument, like the person who works at the New York Times, they don't know what Operation Paperclip is. Like, exactly. If they do, they're not allowed to explicitly mention that at their job. They don't know that, you know, IG Farben and all of these companies like that we are pledge allegiance to be quite honest. NASA,
Yeah.
all of this other stuff. Like what I mean is they have such a reductive view that Pynchon would have to basically remove all of the allure of what he does, all of the art that he, the artfulness, or I don't know if that's a word, but like doing all these things, like, he would have to explicitly do what Stephen King tweets about.
Yeah,
the novel would have to be a Stephen King tweet to satisfy that person, I guess is what I mean. You're correct. What I mean, he goes, I'm going to tell you how, that's why so many people that love to map, like do parapolitical mapping, love Thomas Pynchon, because he's kind of one of few people that will do that will actually like reference something and kind of either dog whistle or outright say something that is like, whoa, I haven't really heard that reference before, like in a novel where there's like a protagonist and all of these things. But yeah, you are correct, Sam. I just know that people that are making that complaint, they don't acknowledge all of these inner workings that he's talking about.
Well, yeah, it is, like you're saying, Bernard, they're historical novels, and for that reason, it's not like a bunch of dot points telling you how this got from A to B. It's just, he'll throw something in there that you can be like, is that real? Did that happen? And half the time you look it up and it's some insane thing conjured up for the plot. But then, like, for instance, I'd never heard of that Milwaukee police station bombing, which
Me neither.
happened and is real, and I'm surprised I hadn't. Apparently, it was the largest casualty of cops until 9/11. But that was a real thing that happened.
There was also I don't know this podcast or anything. I've never listened to it or anything, but Screaming Reverberations, they did a like a thread about, about like Unilever and Shadow Ticket, Real Blood, Fake Butter, a thread, and it's a lot. I mean, they really went into the weeds here, but like there's just like Pynchon has always had a affinity for like the dairy industry and stuff like that.
The cheese thing.
The cheese, cheese, soap, like these real basic staples of modern society, right? Like, soap, antiseptics, a lot of these things that really like kind of, gave us some
light bulbs.
Yeah, light bulbs. That's true. In this one, you get the lamps,
mayonnaise.
Yeah,
mayonnaise.
Yeah,
which someone drowns in at one point.
Yeah, legitimately like fetishizing a lot of these objects too. Like, but also these are things that like kind of separate the primitive world to the modern world. Like these are soap, cheese, for a lot of these things. And they talk about a lot of, look, there's a lot of stuff that's over my head in there, but it gets to the point. And we can scoff at it if you read a Pynchon novel and be like, dude, it's not that deep. But if you read something like V, Pynchon studies a lot of these like African colonization things and all of that. And, I just want to say that Screaming Reverberations did a thread on that. And basically there was, they talk about to the point where the dairy industry was moving to a chemically engineered direction by the time of the 1930s, which you do hear Bruno Ermont talk about this like fake cheese. All these people are like, yeah, that cheese is horrible.
You talk about radiation in the cheese.
Right. So there's something there. There's something there.
Yeah.
Also, the Pabst cheese endeavor was another thing that I found out was real during Prohibition. When they weren't allowed to make beers, they started trying to make cheese.
Oh, interesting. That I didn't know.
It's like the cheese is sort of like overlapping and like a stand-in sometimes for alcohol, and it's like just like the control of dairy industry, alcohol industry, and how that sort of it's used by syndicates to consolidate wider control, so that's what the whole mad cheese dream is about in the thing. But I think it's exact. I think it is that deep. You're saying, Glenn, some people might say, oh well, it's a Pynchon novel, it's not that deep. I think that's the wrong way to read them. Like, yes, there's a lot of random stuff in there, but actually, if you look closely, what you can count on, I think, is Pynchon has always done the work, right? So he's actually went and he's and it's not even just a case of like studying it it's like he somehow immerses himself in it. Like if he's doing a historical novel, there is such a level of immersion, it's unbelievable. I mean, if you read like something like Mason and Dixon, and you read like the voice of Jeremiah Dixon in that novel, you think, how does an American like Pynchon, born when he was, get the flavor of an 18th century man from County Durham?
Yeah,
and he like phonetically writes the accent in there with the up talk and everything. It's crazy.
And I mean, I'm a lot closer to County Durham than like maybe either of you have ever been, right? And so as I'm reading it, I'm like, because it's down the road to me, but as I'm reading, I'm going, that's how they talk in County Durham now. And it's wow. So how have you managed to phonetically grasp and then idioms as well? You'll say that's a kind of Tyneside idiom that he's used. How is Pynchon so familiar with Tyneside vernacular from where he's sitting, like geographically and temporally, and then to be able to then make that a historical voice from that place is just like, wow. He must have so immersed himself in that somehow, and he does it all throughout all his novels. So I think when you're looking at like the material history and Shadow Taking, so you mentioned some of them, but there's lots of them, like glow in the dark things. Lots of glow in the dark things.
Big motif at the start of the book.
Bowling balls, billiard balls, ball bearings, bombs, pineapples, fruit, vegetables, jello, cheese. All these things, all this pieces of material history. I think he's researched them all.
Right.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the submarine thing, like just seeing the submarine as like this like paranormal entity under the water. You know what I mean? Like, that part's really cool when like he's, I actually think that might be my favorite part of the book is the submarine.
I loved that part.
The submarine when he really first gets the tour and there's Nazis there and then there's a raid. And there, I thought that was probably like that reminded me of like the crazy action parts of like Gravity's Rainbow, where you're just like, oh my gosh, this is so worth reading, like so worth getting through everything. Now this is couched in a novel that's very trimmed up and very concise, and I love the idea of like, and Pynchon's really good at this. Is taking something, and I don't necessarily think he's toying at people who believe in anything like paranormal, because I think he's sympathetic to it, even if he's not a true believer. Like, I don't think he's going, haha, dum-dums, like you think anything you think is in the sky is actually government doing. He's just like, hey, I understand the thinking, like where you have, in almost all of his novels, there is some weird paranormal presence that can be either mapped onto something the government's doing or something that just no one knows and is not really worth finding, or is this kind of ambivalent thing. You have that ambivalent thing, the angels, right? In Gravity's Rainbow, you have
totally.
He never dismisses it totally, but in this one, it's like everyone, the submarine coming up, people could think it's like the damn Loch Ness of the Great Lakes, like you could, or I'm sorry, I don't know that area as well as a lot of people, but all of these big lakes out there, you could think, oh my gosh, we have this like straight up like folklore monster in the water, and they're like, actually, it's a submarine full of Nazis. Which one's actually more absurd? Like, which one would actually the people would believe at the time, especially now that they see like the Germans as they're just rebuilding post World War I. What guys, and then Hugo Boss, the suits, like they could be thinking that, but like what would scare a person in Milwaukee or Chicago more? There's a big monster in the sea, or a submarine full of fascists, a big machine that you could never conceive, at the time, that literally like, going underwater, a boat that goes underwater like in a torpedo, and you can that like we right now, knowing what the Nazis were, we would be like, well, that's terrifying, you know what I mean? But at the time, like, you kind of think like they'll be like, oh, it's just guys underneath in the water. That's kind of crazy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I found that part to be very interesting when they first see the kind of thing on the basically coming up to the surface of the water.
I love when Stuffy gets in it as well, and he's kind of just vanished from the shack, and then they see the lights of the submarine, and it stops when they stop.
Yeah,
So
it's brilliant.
eerie. But I did think, yeah, like you said, there's always seances and apparitions and stuff. There's a UFO in Vineland, but there was a lot more paranormal stuff in this than most of his books. And the whole asports thing is very interesting. And trying to figure out what that's about, I think it serves a few different purposes in the book, like things just disappearing out of nowhere, or sorry, appearing out of nowhere and then disappearing out of nowhere. I took to be obviously like there is a kind of current of high society people being really into theosophy and stuff, especially in the start of the 20th century, that does just kind of get memory hold or written off. But also, it does seem like there's a very like big renewed interest in that stuff at the moment. Like you've got Tucker Carlson interviewing guys who fucking come out of nowhere and talk about the occult on.
Yeah, it's very strange. And Peter Thiel's Antichrist thing. You have like all these, like it is odd, and I think a lot of people are where like Pynchon is. If we're to assume just that he's kind of right there in the middle, I'm like, look, I don't want to hear you talk about it, you know, guy who's in charge of things. I want to like, these are kind of things that you want to experience on like a folklore level, but when they're told to you by which I mean, Bernard, I mean, you're probably more so than all of us. I can't speak for Australia, but you're in a place where like that stuff, that folklore stuff is pretty prominent. Like everybody I know that I've met from like Ireland, whether they're just like a desk clerk or something, they're like, oh yeah, the fairies over there, they'll kill you. Like that is that's still a pretty big thing over there, right?
Well, there was a massive across the United Kingdom. There was across Britain there was a massive resurgence during the Victorian era of like Druidism, for instance.
Right.
It's really a response to the fact that we have absolutely no idea about what our roots are in terms of our pre-Christian religion. There's no idea. Like Norse religion and Norse religion is well known. You know, you got your Odins and your Freyas and whatnot. Irish religion's a little bit better known. British religion, as in Scottish religion, English religion, we've no idea. We've got like fragments of fragments to work out what we were before we were Christian. So you know, there's been revival after revival in the modern period in Britain of different movements trying to sort of get some sort of sense of what we were before that. And so one of the big ones was the Druid movement in Britain. It was like an attempt to get back to what like Druids, really quote unquote, because nobody knows what those were either.
Right,
so,
right.
It's like, and this is all over the world. You know, like you mentioned the Theosophists and like Madame Blavatsky is actually mentioned in Shadow Ticket. And you're right. I think I heard someone, Tucker Carlson was about Madame Blavatsky
land and
So it's really a very current. Again, it's like we're talking about. Like you don't need to be on the nose talking about current events to be talking about current events.
Yeah,
because we live in the long tail of history. You know, we've got things going on now that have been going on for centuries, and we're like the fruit of that, or something that's coming out of that. And so you can totally go back and just, I'm going to do a historical novel, thoroughly research it and immerse myself in the 30s. And through doing that, I can say things about the present time without ever commenting about the present time.
Well, I mean, even, you know, Gravity's Rainbow is clearly largely about Vietnam, and it's set in the 40s. And I feel like, all something that maps onto now. So it's very, very naive.
He's
a New Yorker or whatever it was, New York Times.
Yeah, I didn't. I think so. Yeah,
Fuck that article off.
Yeah, but you have the No, you're right, because I think V in his first novel, he really introduces that aspect of the thing you think is happening as a first time. Wow, like look what's happening in the 50s. Let me take you back to 1847 in the Congo or something, or whatever, like with or whenever the Germans first got there or whatever, like this same exact thing is happening. And he's like, I'm not saying what the time you're living in doesn't have unique qualities. And, he does a pretty good job of highlighting those things, but he's kind of showing you what human nature is a lot of times. Like, and there's a lot of people, I think a lot of times he pokes at progressives a little bit at times with that, where people just think like, okay, like if you're saying we're going to do some unprecedented thing as humans, everyone has always thought that they were going to do something unprecedented as humans and changing human nature for good. Now we see that happening with like AI and things like that, which I do think is a little bit more of a new situation. But for the most part, he's like, here's what happens when somebody thinks that they're going to change the world. They do change the world, but kind of in the same way over and over and over again with a different dressing, I think.
Well, yeah, the again, the Apports things just vanishing or popping up out of nowhere, like that's only going to become more prevalent with AI. Like every day you see something on the internet that's just, or even just culture in general. Every week there's a movie that you see a trailer for, you had no idea it was being made, it comes out, people are mad about it for 2 months, and then no one gives a shit or ever talks about it again.
Right.
It's gone.
Yeah. It's quite.
I feel like it's just applicable to it.
Yeah, because shrinking the human memory is worse than doing what Pynchon does, or somebody pretending that history's always been like this incremental progress of like being a decent person. I think what we're doing now is like 10 times worse of just goldfish braining, basically.
Oh yeah.
That's way worse. Because what Pynchon will do is like, hey, there's this thing that happened, or even if he makes up like a composite character and like a plot line full of a few composite event, I should say. He will tell you that like that's not as like blackpilling or nihilist as basically like the Men in Black gun, or the Men in Black beeper that just goes, actually 2 months ago, that movie you were mad about, you're not even gonna go see, or that thing, there's just this like kind of like the truly goldfish braining people, I think is actually worse than any of that.
Or that whole geopolitical event that took place, what war are we interested in this week, sort of thing, that's sort of thing. So it's just like, and we are sort of using the Men in Black trigger on ourselves, actually, because we go very willingly each day to our social media accounts and do the scroll, and it's really quite frightening, actually, because I was talking to somebody about this just recently about another event that I'm doing soon, and about AI, because they want to talk about AI, and I was talking to them about, like, I mean, I'm quite insulated from this personally because I've always had a sort of relationship with printed matter and books.
Mm-hmm.
So I can shut this lid down and go away and read a book. But so many people can't. So many people don't have that relationship with printed matter. But then it's even happening to me, you see. It's like my attention span's nothing like it used to be 3 years.
Oh, yeah, man. Even just reading this or reading anything, like so often I'll find myself halfway through a page and be like, oh, I've been thinking about something that happened to me this morning. I need to read this again, which is not uncommon reading anything, but it's getting worse. And the algorithm is so fucking hyper engineered to just seduce you into the scroll that it's so hard to retain anything.
And it's like almost like it's become the function of social media now to do that, because like I've noticed things like YouTube, for instance. I've always like watched long form stuff on YouTube. You'll watch the like a 3-hour lecture or whatever. But what you find now is it takes you immediately into shorts. So it's more like this TikTok. It's trying to become a bit more like TikTok. So, and what you find is really scary is you end up watching the shorts.
Yeah, even Twitter, everything, every app's just there's like 4 websites now on the internet.
Yeah, with different,
and they're all just crazy.
Gosh, I know. It's yeah, that's the beauty of this. When that's why I laughed so hard. I mean, going back to that review saying he's not making really anything on the current time. Like they gave him this responsibility to do that as an author, as a guy, as a man who has seen so many eras happen. So we're not. It's like, well, listen to what we've just talked about in the last hour, and he is commenting on a lot of stuff, but also transporting you into a time where you don't feel hyper present in the world, which I love. Like I kind of love the kind. I love, like, for a lot of comfort reads I love going back to the old pulp novels and stuff. So it is whether it's Dashiell Hammett, Mickey Spillane,
great,
just these fun. I mean, and I hate even calling them comfort reads because it almost sounds like a pejorative. I still get a lot of the same stuff that I get out of a sprawling literary novel. But it's just that's what I love. I loved about this book so much was just like, it's got everything. I will say it even does have the Pynchonian lull in the middle a little bit for me. Just the classic, like, oh boy, what happened? Where are we at? I'm lost. What are we doing? Where British guys on the submarine? Like, what are we after he's kidnapped? Which I do, looking back on it, I do like that. But what do you guys make of the whole kidnap where Stuffy Keegan is on one boat with is it Peppino or who's the there's another Italian guy that
it's Porfirio, isn't it? Or
yes.
I think so.
So he's on it again. We're kind of like, and it's funny, like where Hicks is like, well, my enemies are traveling with me side by side. So this is just like back home, but also he's like, wait, what's going on here? And they're serving him drinks. He's like, yeah, cool. I got, got whiskey, got everything I need here. These British guys, they're different. There's something different about it. But he has this apprehension at the same time, but also like, well, this is the job. Oh, I got so much paperwork to do. Man, my boss has got to be wondering what the heck I'm doing on this ticket. When in reality, it's like, no, this is actually what you were meant to do this whole time. Sadly, what did you guys think of that whole part?
I love when he meets those the British couple who he finds out are spies, and they're just complaining that they can't get a good sticky toffee pudding in America. Very funny. Yeah,
they're a good pair of characters actually, and they're sort of involved in psychic phenomena as well, aren't they? And with the MI5 or something like that, and it's they're quite interesting little side characters, and again, really funny. It's like really, it's a very fun. But I think like this whole passage away from America, that is fascinating all by itself. How it's like the passage to Europe, and then at the end of the novel, the passage away, we don't know where we end up. It's like a shadow America or a shadow world waiting to happen. I think that's a fascinating bit. I was interested to know what you were thinking as well about the different portraits we have in the novel, like of the concept of American liberty, right? Because the Statue of Liberty appears 3 times in the novel, and it's always in a slightly denigrating fashion. You get the Statue of Liberty that Skeet is holding in his, like he's got got a dollar, a $50, and on the $50 there's a Statue of Liberty, but the sun behind the Statue of Liberty is like leering up her dress.
That's
and
right.
And then you've got the FBI give Hicks a little Statue of Liberty made out of jello, and he says sort of disparagingly, "Oh, what part do you eat first? Do you eat the torch or do you eat the head?" So it's like this sort of the consuming and the destroying of American liberty. And then you've got this really weird liberty at the end, and this sort of whatever kind of weird shadow America that they're moving into at the end in the submarine. That's a sort of a lady liberty that's sort of clad in war garb, and she's kind of got a face covering,
like thousands of miles out into the ocean or something, and it's like 100 feet tall.
That's right. Yeah, And like all these, to me, like the sort of the passage, like so it sort of responds to your question, because it's like as they move away from the old America, they're moving towards a sort of new concept of America, that has a new some kind of new concept of American liberty, that is either like disparaging of American liberty in general, or this really quite haunting image at the end of Liberty draped in battle garb with her face covered. And then it even says an even more disconcerting thing. It says if you were to go up like on a gyroscope or whatever, and you were to go and you were to look through the face covering, you might see her face. But what that face is, we don't know. It's like this. I think, he's definitely signaling a time of American liberty in crisis. But and perhaps, casting his eye over the whole of American history, the whole 250 years of it, and saying whatever was American liberty, really.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And when you talk about the what side do you eat first, and like almost like deconstructing Statue of Liberty is interesting to me, because a lot of times we won't notice, even after they're gone, we won't notice liberties being taken away, right? I mean, the right to privacy. I mean, is there any privacy anymore? I mean, even if there's laws, the technology we all are accustomed to is legitimately listening to everything we say. Yes. And it's kind of disturbing. Not kind of, it is disturbing. And the I guess the idea was, would the Statue of Liberty have to physically be like taken apart or modified for you to understand something's different? Like something that you can see, let's say you're in New York and you look out there, like the whole world's changing in front of you, but like a gradual, slow change, given with the whole classic breads and circuses, like given entertainment, given glowing things, online dating, all of these things at the palm of your hand. Would you have to just look up and see a modified Statue of Liberty to see like, oh shit, do we not have this? Like, why can't I do this anymore? Why can't I do that anymore? I think it talks about the subtleties of how slow and gradual of a process, even when we're talking about, like, no joke, like fascist governments taking over, like real fascist governments taking over, changing neighborhoods overnight and stuff. Like in America, a lot of times we'll look and we'll just be like, damn, remember 10 years ago when you could just say that? Or remember 10 years ago when you could do this? Like it becomes like an ultimate retrospective. It takes like a documentary, which is kind of a play on it, a play on what Pynchon's doing here. It takes like a big full-fledged production to remind you of it. Like, whereas you would need to see the Statue of Liberty missing a chunk of her ass or something, and just being like, oh, damn, something's different.
What's the endless frontier, right? The endless westward expansion, where like the idea of freedom is constantly changing. And I think I don't know, that whole aspect of it is very eerie, but is also in all of his stuff. And again, it's just people sort of memory hold these things immediately. And
the Men in Black gun, that's why the Men in Black beeper thing really comes into play, like is what you don't remember happening 2 weeks ago. And it circles back to what you were saying at the beginning, Sam, and it's kind of like the crux of why I even cover literature, is to give myself a task and to get my attention span back. If you don't have an attention span, you don't have a memory, in my opinion. Like, it's
totally, and you can't stay tapped into how these things do progress. And
and memory's a burden.
Totally unaware of the extent of surveillance now and all that.
Yeah, and you're also given, it's also a little bit of a burden to be the only person with an attention span and with a memory too. Like when you're with a group of friends who don't do that, you're kind of like annoying. You're the annoying one, like by default.
And you're still paranoid.
Paranoid. Oh, come on. Oh, you get that from your friends, and you realize there's a sense of etiquette that like maybe you're not participating in, and the etiquette is just kind of,
to not worry.
Yeah, to not worry, to not remember, to not do, unless you are physically told to remember something, right? Like unless you are like saying like never forget, right? You see that with all of these certain things. Never, hey, don't forget, like that. But then something will be like, hey, 5 years ago, remember when this happened? Like, and everyone's just like, no, but did that or something? Whatever. We've all been in these scenarios before, but I think Pynchon's really At least that's my read of it. Is really covering the fact that you would have to see something so demonstrative to be reminded that something changed, something that you're probably not going to see really in real time. I mean, yeah, obviously something could happen to the Statue of Liberty, but I think he's just saying like you would need to see this drastic change. And I think, you know, the only time people saw it change was when Nazis show up and just are like occupying every space, and everyone goes, you know, everyone just goes, shit, it's really different around here now. Like it has to be something to that degree for people to notice.
And I suppose the that final image of the, you know, this strange like looming Statue of Liberty draped in battle garb or whatever, that's, you know, that's America post World War II. They suddenly, with a superpower, had the biggest, strongest military in the world. That's how it is now. But yeah, I'd forgotten about the little Jello one.
Little Jello one. Yeah, I mean, I think what Pynchon always does through all his work, you know, is calling us to be very attentive to the fact that reality has dimensions to it, you know, and it has always had dimensions to it. So when you see the outside physical environment that you walk through every day, that's one dimension, but there are other dimensions in play. So, you know, if you, and that becomes obvious. You can see it in all his novels. But if you see something like, you know, his last novel, before Shadow Ticket, Bleeding Edge, that's all about the internet, you know, and how we, you know, he has the conceit in Bleeding Edge about Deep Archer, which is like a freely coded internet realm that you can actually like escape to and become like enmeshed in that, rather than in the what they even call the outside world the meat world or something like that. So this is just like the meat world or meat space, right? We're in meat. Right. But then you can go to the other dimension that's the internet, and it's like, and how many of us, like we've been discussing here, you know, how many are getting more and more enmeshed in cyberspace rather than the meat space of your everyday environment that's around you, you know, the things you can physically touch. And he's doing that, I think, in Shadow Ticket as well. He's saying, so you know, American liberty might have three different aspects. Pay attention to them all. Pay attention to the fact that the America you live in, there is a shadow America underneath it.
Yep.
That you've got to be aware of that, because that's exerting control over the way things will be and the direction that we go in. And that's, you know, we were talking about all the psychic phenomena as well. That's a dimension, like the psychic dimension as well. What's going on inside my head? Yeah, you know, it's a whole different dimension of reality, and you got to pay attention to it.
Yeah, no, I think it's all. I think all that stuff applies. What else are we missing from this book? What are some of the? I think I mean. After I know the magicians, there's Hungarian magicians or whatever they are, that, and they're kind of like a secret police kind of thing to save vintage lamps or something, lamps from the old guard. That part's pretty funny. That part's pretty funny. And then also, you know, I actually really love the way the book ends. I love the letter from
it's beautiful, yeah.
From Skeet, from Skeet, who, you know, Skeet's a younger guy. He was a kind of a career. He was heading on the wrong path, right? He was going to be a criminal at the beginning of the book, but he was kind of fascinated with the police, though. He was kind of that was kind of his way out of that world, which is many such cases. Like I know a lot of people who did like prison time working in construction, and they like. I mean, I don't know if they ended up getting it, but they really wanted to work on the other side of it after a while, because guess what they saw a lot of was like, hey, that's not a bad gig. That's not, I know the inner workings. Yeah, it's a solid career, and I've seen both sides of it or whatever. And you kind of see Skeet as that guy. Now, unfortunately, that letter is coming to Hicks, who is so deep into this, you know, Shadow Ticket world. But that letter comes to him, and it's not a bad letter, but you kind of get the idea for Skeet. You're like, oh no. You're trying to become Hicks.
Yeah,
and look at what Hicks is.
But Hicks does sort of maybe not find love right at the end, but another romance pops up for him. It's not the saddest.
Oh yeah,
ending.
the motorcycle girl. What's her name?
Tariq.
What is it? You said it wasn't. It was Globe.
Yeah. That was nice. And there's pigs. There's more pigs. More pigs too towards the end of the book, like Gravity's Rainbow. We do have pigs. All throughout the Eastern European countryside. And the thing is, unfortunately, we know where the world is. Kind of like Don DeLillo's Libra. Like we know what the historical timeline of the book is, so we know certain inevitabilities of what's happening, despite getting a look into an author's idea of what happened within certain characters of it. James Ellroy does a lot of the same things as well in his Underworld trilogy, which I highly recommend to a lot of people. But what's to come in the 30s. What's to come of the world. It's you have depressions, in America, at least in the late 20s and stuff. You have the depressions, then you have, rise of fascism in the East, or not in the East, but in East of America, in Europe and stuff, and in Eastern Europe, you have, I guess you got rise of fascism in a lot of places. You have Japan, you have the world really, and then yeah, exactly. And then we also have through Pynchon novels that we've read after that, we have post that. We have Gravity's Rainbow. We have, Crying of Lot 49. We have Inherent Vice. We have all these novels that kind of deal with that. And I go back to what Sam said at the beginning of this being kind of his decade, kind of that one historical period that he hasn't touched. And as a man who's probably is closer, he's taken a long look at mortality right now, being as old as he is, and I bet you it was like, I gotta cover that one time. It was kind of just that perfectionist, and I'm glad he wasn't a perfectionist about this book. It doesn't seem like he was. I'm glad it's not one of those ones that is take 1,000 pages long and all of that. And it was a very readable, fun one, to be quite honest. So yeah, to me, I loved it, but I loved the way it ended. I thought the way it ended was the way it started and the way it ended, I thought were some of his best work, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And it is like, it's like you was talking about the rise of fascism there in different places. And it's a great book for like the rise of fascism in America as well. Right. And again, that's not any comment on the future or the present. That's a comment on the 1930s, because Charles Lindbergh was a pro, he was pro Hitler before the war.
Henry Ford.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like there's fascism was rising in America too at that time. It just so happened not to get up enough steam to become anything. So it's like that, and again, it's like the idea of dimensions and Pynchon. The other thing that Pynchon does a lot is like there's this, and I really love this. I think I would like. I think when people read Pynchon and others, they sort of, but so much Pynchon, you get this sort of idea of history that I think is so sophisticated, and it's not this naive history that we look at as a sort of linear A leads to B, leads to C. He shows us a sort of tree of history where there were 1,000 different possibilities for those series of events to go. We could have quite easily have had a fascist America in the 1930s and 40s, but it just for various reasons, for various geopolitical, social reasons, that was diverted. And I think what Pynchon does is he always leaves those doors open in his work. So that's why, people say, why is Pynchon so random? Is he random, or is he just simply saying, this is all I've done is left all the doors of history open?
Yeah. He's just noticing.
Yeah, he's just noticing. He's noticing. And also what you said about, it made me think, like, I think a lot of people might say Pynchon is anti-America, right? Or pro. I wouldn't consider him, this massive like patriot of a person, but I think he realizes America as kind of a pretty unique place.
I think he loves it. I think he loves the idea of freedom and what
right.
Like the potential of it, like what it was supposed to be.
He sees it as a unique ground for many different things. Like I think he sees it for, it's like a family member, right? Like to him, it's a family member where he knows he wouldn't, you know, if somebody comes to him saying, I hate your family member, he'd be like, whoa, hold on. You know what I mean? But he'll go, I hate when he does this. I hate when he does that. You know, it's a family member. And I think that's actually a pretty human quality about him, about people with their countries. You know what I mean? Like it's like I personally love America. Like I do. I love it. I live here. I've never been outside the country, so people could hold that against me. But for the most part, I just say, I'm like, no, I love it here. I love it for what it is. I hate it for a lot of things that it's become. And perhaps I've always been here, but I'm just experiencing for the first time. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of people try so hard to use Pynchon as this direct energy weapon, and they go, nah, we're taking out this thing with the Thomas Pynchon novel, and it's like that thing's gonna bounce back and hit you.
Yeah. I think that's I've never thought about it quite precisely in that way, but I think that's a marvelous way of thinking about it, Glenn. It's like he's a family member to these, because you've got the, you know, like, come back to Doc. I don't know why he keeps coming to my mind, but Doc and Inherent Vice, that's what I think when I read him, because it is like your old crazy uncle almost, that he's describing. You know, you never know when you read a character like that. You never know whether he's and you know, characters in Vineland are the same. You never know whether Pynchon is saying, oh, look at this excessive drug taking and this like shiftless life that this person lives. This is a disgrace, or whether he's saying, right on, man. This is the happy dream, right? You don't know what he's saying. And I think that's a really interesting avenue to go down, to think about that, what you've just said, like a family member. Like he's got lots of bad habits that lead to really deleterious paths, and all sorts of things go wrong. But he's my family member. He's my countryman. He's come out of the same, you know, material circumstances as me, and I get him. Yeah. So it's that sort of like an intimacy that I suppose an intimacy that isn't afraid to be critical. Then, because if you're intimate, you can be critical.
No, exactly. And I think, you don't really hear him talk about other countries in a better light than he does in America. He can expand the world forever and forever and forever, and he still makes America to be the more desirable place, I feel like, in almost all of his novels. I could be wrong on there, but that's my read of it.
I'm sure there's some inherent fondness for it because he's from the US, but it's just like he can constantly just find a little pocket of history and explode it into this panoramic thing, and it's just endless possibilities of bad things that have happened, but also cool shit that was happening at the time, and interesting, fun little blips in history that are, you know, endlessly kind of able to be mapped onto the current day, and you know, still present new possibilities if you factor them into where we're at right now. Which is interesting that there's the whole digression about I was going to say this before, but the idea of being the most free when you've got nothing to lose and you're on the run, which is like a very kind of odd sentiment for him, but makes sense in the context of that book. And I guess that's kind of the same with like Slothrop in Gravity's Rainbow.
Sure.
Like, no one can catch him. He's out of everyone's grasp.
Yeah.
Because he's just, you know, kind of like the quintessential American. Like he's it's always like on the frontier, always trying to find something new, like, which I guess is Hicks as well.
You know, you're exactly right.
Kind of against his will, but
and I get I get the idea that you have, you know, his first novel constantly talks about animate objects versus inanimate objects, and he's constantly making inanimate objects animate, you know, like
lots of that in this book too.
Yeah, with Byron, the bulb, the lamps as well.
The lamp,
calling a lamp and a boat a critter.
Yeah, because like he's, I think like the sedentary, just being like sedentary, and I don't mean that literally. I mean that just like mentally speaking, like, or figuratively speaking, and like just being sedentary mentally, I think is like hell, is his version of hell. Like if Pynchon was Dante or something, or, you know, if Pynchon was, you know what I mean, or whatever, it doesn't matter. Any, you know, Milton, any of these people, if they were writing their idea of hell, his idea of hell would be literally just isolation and just stuck. And just being stuck in this case, because all of his like you said, all of his characters that are moving around the most seem to be doing the best. And Slothrop, I mean, what's the last scene we get of Slothrop in Gravity's Rainbow? He's in a chair and he's just getting, it's sad. He's being euthanized, really. I mean, if you want to think about it that way, one way or another, whether you think he was literally killed in that chair, or if just the idea of him, or the fun, you know, forever on the run protagonist that we see in these classic movies that were from Pynchon's lifetime and stuff, like that part of him dying is just like dying. And Benny Profane and V, I mean, everybody out, they have like the most fun a lot of these beatnik people have is playing that game on the subway where they go around and around and around, but they're moving. It's a dumb game. Like, it's a dumb game. It's people throwing up, eating a bunch and throwing up on the subway, but like they feel alive when that happens. And Hicks just goes through. Hicks is like, the only way out is through. I don't even know if that's true. Hicks doesn't even know if that's true. We don't know if that's true, but that's the way he operates. And it's better if he were to just sit there and take it from wherever he was, even if he was in his beloved place of Milwaukee, you feel like his fate would be even worse, maybe.
Yeah, and to add to the list, Mason and Dixon as well. Mason and Dixon at the end are retired and kind of hating it, you know, that they would, you know, harken back to that wonderful adventure, which is, you know, also a kind of game, like when they were surveying the Mason and Dixon line and the Cape Town surveying and stuff like that. That was just like their grand adventure of their life, you know, and it made them kind of like almost a, you know, that there are such a like platonic friendship, but almost so close to being a romance, because that was the great time in their life, you know. And at the end, like you're saying, it's sort of so I think you're right, a sort of stasis or a being stuck or being retired. Oh no, maybe that's why Pynchon has not retired.
Yeah, he's still obsessed with the idea. Everything we said, he's still obsessed with that. If we're to believe he wrote this book 2 years ago, or in a process of like 2 years to release it this year, we're to believe that means I think that's an accurate reading, is that if Thomas Pynchon announces I have retired from writing, I think he'd be dead within a month.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't have a novel that's not an adventure, you know.
It's true.
And
yeah. That's why it's fun too. The adventure is the best part. I mean, Oedipa Maas, once it starts getting going, when she's just going from place to place from that hotel on, you're just like, this is so fun. I don't want to be, even when it gets to that part where you're watching the play happen and you feel lost. I mean, it's important, right? What do you do when Pynchon drops you into a body of water? Are you going to just sink? No, the human body will try their best. I mean, some are more skilled than others, but you will try your best to stay afloat. Like, you cannot, it's really tough to drown yourself without cement shoes, you know, like it's really hard. And Pynchon is constantly showing you cement shoes in the world as a way to drown yourself. And that's, we see it in all his novels. The people who fall, drugs are often those things. Just kind of people caught up in a counterculture that they end up staying in for 20 and 30 years, when none of it is doing anything countercultural. Like, a lot of these things are cement shoes to these people. Whereas his protagonists, that even if they have what we're to believe is poor fates at the end of it, they are doing their best to tread water. And that's kind of, to him, I think, what America is. And a lot of people hate the idea of treading water in America, and some people view that as an idea of freedom. And I think Pynchon's right in the middle of both, but he wouldn't trade it for anything, in my opinion.
And also, like, the constantly being not on the run but moving, and it's the same as how he'll write about something and just expand and expand and expand. And, you know, all of the books are an adventure. They're all a mystery, but the mystery only ever deepens. No one really gets to the heart of anything. Like, they all end with more and more questions. And that's just kind of how life is, you know.
Lovecraft is like, I always go to, like, why I think Lovecraft is so smart, whether you love or hate his writing. I mean, just the concept of the guy who the guy who wants to find. I do too. Once you find the when you're like, I am this professor at this university, and I will get to the bottom of that weird book that's in that library. I will get to the bottom of it. And Lovecraft goes, all right, see what happens. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna, you'll get to the bottom of it. No, you will, and you're gonna hate it. You're gonna wish you never
lose your
opened up
fucking
that
mind.
book. Pynchon will go, actually, you'll never get to the end of it. He does it. He has the same thing. Like people have that same, and whereas a lot of times Pynchon's protagonists, unlike Lovecraft, they'll won't be the sharpest tool in the shed. In fact, they'll kind of be like lovable idiots a lot of times, but they'll have these qualities, these kind of like qualities in the way that like people see in an infant, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I love the quality, the squishiness of them. Like just, like with Slothrop, you're just like, you sympathize with him this whole time, even when he's participating in acts that none of us would ever even think of doing. Like you sympathize with these guys, but you also realize, shit, we're not going to get to the end of this. Like we're not going to get to the end of this, There's
literally the scene in this where Hicks is talking to, I can't remember which character, but he's like, oh, how much is that going to cost? And she's like, it's that $10 that's in your hat brim. And he's like, what? How did you make that appear? And pulls it out. And then he's immediately like, don't tell me.
Yeah.
So true. I love that. That's what the apportist, the therapist kind of person at the police department or something, I can't remember, but yeah, it's like that's when he's trying to figure out why he has that problem of why he can't get something, why he can't like be a brute. Basically, it's probably the one thing that's missing from Hicks is,
and he wants to just leave it a mystery.
Yeah, that's why he's not Mike Hammer in like a Spillane novel. He's like, it's why he's not that. He's obviously an attractive man. He's a big guy. He's got this like looming stature, but he can't like get a certain thing done. And the thing is do you want to get that thing done? Are you being held back by something divine? Are you being held back by something material? We don't really get the answer to that. And that's oftentimes how life works in there. And like that, but I love this. I just love that Pynchon. I'm trying to think of a novel where we get an answer to anything, really. I mean, we don't. And I think that's what
always just more questions.
Exactly. And like I think back to Oedipa Maas, in Crying of Lot 49. I mean, was her journey ever really worth it? I don't think it was. I mean, it's worth it for us as the reader because it's so fun and the first time you're reading it, you're like, I've just never read anything like this. But for her, it's like, she loses her husband, who in Vineland becomes a record executive, or whatever. It becomes this massive, successful record, Mucho Mas, and she loses pretty much everything and doesn't get the answer. And the Slothrop, he definitely doesn't have a good fate in that. Doc Sportello, I think, actually makes out the best out of a lot of guys. I mean, like, is it does he get this grand finale ending? No, but he just keeps driving. You know what I mean? He just keeps driving, and it's as though we're going to get 7 more Inherent Vice novels that end the same way, of him driving on the interstate. But with Hicks, it's kind of like, I think Hicks is going to make out just fine. Like I don't think Hicks is going to die. Right. In this, I think he's going to somehow be there. But I think, unfortunately, Hicks is going to learn more things that give him a jaded view on the world. And we're going to lose the sweet Hicks that we've had for the novel. And that's the
jaded for sure.
Mm-hmm.
He's sort of the sort of character that never dies, is he? Because he's not a person, he's a type. He's just like he's the hard-boiled detective. He's that off the peg hard-boiled detective, so he's just going to go on being Hicks forever, and exactly the same. It's a sort of two-dimensional character that works in comedy, that works, his like as a person who develops, as a person who has that depth, he's not that, but then he doesn't need to be that because as the type has developed out of such a deep substructure anyway, that it's like what he is just perfect for his time and his place, and it makes such a comment on the time and place that there's no. So I get the sense of like Hicks going on like forever, new tickets and all sorts of things like that. It's just like it's that adventure goes on, I think.
Yeah, life is nothing.
They're all fighting one battle after another, you could say.
Good point. Well, yeah. Well, guys, I mean, great talk. I have it's funny. I like the novel quite a lot. I like it more now that we've talked about it too. It's like there's just new thing. That's the beauty of talking about things like that. I hope anybody who has read this, maybe if you were on the fence about it, hopefully this kind of pushed you into the other way, because a Pynchon novel, I mean, it breeds discussion. He's one of the most interesting authors to talk about, whether, since we don't know a lot about him personally, but we get so much of him, so many of his words. There's a lot of his words out there. So we really only have the work to go off of and any sort of historical reference that comes with that. I will say I eventually will probably tap on Bernard for a Mason and Dixon thing at some point. I am Pynchoned out. I'm sure you are right now too.
Yeah. I am in a while, but it is my absolute 100% favorite. So
we're gonna have to do it at some point. It could be years from now, but we have to do it. Like it's I do really want to watch it. I really do want to read it, and I because that's the one I feel like I'm gonna like more, because I Gravity's Rainbow is still my favorite so far. I thought that was I just loved that book. Sam, I appreciate you waking up so early in the morning. You wouldn't have been able to tell because I wouldn't be that sharp at 5 a.m. So thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for that. Where Bernard, where can everybody find you?
At Bernard T. Joy. That's on X, and I post there quite regularly, and it's quite fun because it's just like an outpouring of everything I'm doing with my literary work, and it's just like a massive byproduct of what I'm doing. So you'll see kind of like in real time what's going on with me.
Right, exactly. And now, Sam, I don't get the idea you want to be found too readily available, but if so, is there anything you want to promote?
I just don't have much of a social media presence, but I made a Twitter recently, so it's at CGIS Hill.
Nice.
If people want to chat to me, I mean, add me and I'll chat to you, and maybe I'll start posting stuff on there on regular.
Maybe this could be the start of something great.
Start of something.
Start of something. It always starts somewhere. So for me, guys, just go to rcnow.org. That's where all that stuff is. I cover fiction a lot of times behind a paywall. A few of them have been free, including this one. So please support us at rarecandy.substack.com. My co-host Sai, who's not here today, but he writes a lot of cool stuff on there. And on that note, everybody have a safe week. We'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.